If you ever hit a deal with a reality, Karen, go ahead and like this video. Hit subscribe if you've ever been woken up at 3 часа ночи by something other than you on nightmares. And drop a comment with the city or country you're watching from, one, not just how far this madness travels. Now let me set the scene. The baseball sit like a heartbeat through my chest, a tonus archer teaching that play tag with the silky smooth just a coink in my mind. In my dream, I was Miles Davis, back from the dead, wrapped in a silk-smoking jacket and commanding a stage full of legends. Elephants growled scattered like a hummingbird on espresso. Jimi Hendrix shed a solo that probably made the Angels hero. Anti-Miles, cool breeze. Jefferson was blowing my trumpet so hard. The Apollo's roof was one note away from liftoff. The crowd chanted my name. Cool breeze. Cool breeze. And 10. The spell shattered. A screech, sharp as glass and twice as painful, tore through the music. Not a hitting a high, not something far worse. I woke up. Gone was the silk jacket. In its place, wrinkled cotton pajamas. The jazz. Replaced by a frantic, angry pounding at my front door. I checked the time. 3 часа ночи. Who the hell was trying to break into my apartment at this hour? Groggy, I shuffled to the door and peered through the peephole. I nearly swallowed my own tongue. There she was Agnes Plumtree from 2B. My neighbor. I an elderly whirlwind obliged blondie fury. A walking, shouting stereotypy with a voice that could turn wine to vinegar. Open this door, boy, she shrieked, was cracking like a busted violin string. I need you to fix my Wi-Fi. I blinked. Maybe I was still dreaming. Maybe Miles had speaked my subconscious with something spicy. Agnes, I croaked, still half asleep. It's 3 in the morning. I'm not your personal tech support. Don't says me. Franklin, she yelled, her voice going foolish plant. My Netflix is bothering. I need to watch murder, she wrote. Now open this door or I'm calling the cops. I stared at her, stunned. The audacity was Olympic level. For context, I'm Franklin Jefferson. I'm a software engineer I built networks, not a fixed Wi-Fi at ungodly hours for screeching neighbors. So I did the only sane thing. I shoot the door in her voice. Back in bed, I tried to piece my Miles Davis dream back together, but IT was no use. All I could see was Agnes, yelling like she was auditioning for a civil war reenactment. I muttered curses about the decline of humanity until sleep finally dragged me under again. 2 hours later, the pounding returned only now. IT was more serious. La order, and accompanied by YYCs. Police, open up. My blood ran cold. This was IT. The nightmare scenario. A black man, alpha asleep in his own home, now facing down a cerebral swattery because manning the woman didn't get her nightly fix of Washington's crime drama. I took a deep breath, wiped the panic over my face, and opened the door. 2 officers stood in the hallway, stony watched. Behind them, lit by the flickering hallway light, was Agnes, clutching for rat like a dog princess of Loferbot and the ring, a solicitous fit smirk. I'm Jefferson, one officer said flatly. We received a report that you were assaulted at Maris Plumtree. I blinked. Assaulted. I didn't touch her. She came banging on my door at 3 часа ночи, demanding I fix her Wi-Fi. When I said no, I closed the door. Hatsatir, the cop raised an eyebrow. She says you shoved her and threatened her. That's a lie. I said, my voice rising. There are security cameras in the hallway. Check the footage. The second officer, a younger woman with kind eyes, nodded. We already did. She glanced at Agnes. That smoke look. Gone. In its place. Creeping dread. The footage, the officer continued, tells a slightly different story. In effect, it shows you полетела declining for request for technical assistance, and Maris Plumtree aggressively banging on your door while yelling to. The lead officer cleared Uji's throat. Which brings us to the Maris Plumtree. You're under arrest for filling a false police report. Agnes turned 3 shades of purple. But here's a menace. Princess of Lofi both barked dramatically as the officer scoffed Agnes and led her away. Her protests echoing down the hall like a badwritten sitcom finale. I stood there in MY pajamas, blinking in disbelief. And that, friends, is the story of how I went from Miles Davis in a dream to a nearly restated escape, all because someone saw Hindu bowing at 3 часа ночи. The court ordered her to pay me Mayor Franklin Jefferson a hefty sum for defamation and emotional distress. The damages were no joke. Let's just say it was enough to clear my mortgage, pick up a vintage trumpet, and maybe even book a new ticket to the moon. Agnes Gespet as the verdict landed. Her voice crumpled in disbelief. She was financially devastated. As I stepped out of the courtroom, a swarm of reporters rushed toward me, microphones out like spears. Mayor Jefferson, how do you feel? One shouted. I smiled. I feel like justice has finally been served, I said. And like my wife has never been stronger. The karma was delicious. Agnes Plumley had tried to dismantle my life with her licentiousness meant now she'd paid the price. But that isn't the end of the story. No, that was just the beginning. With this newfound world, I thought we'd done anything about a yacht, hired a private chief, lived out my day sipping mojitos in the Bahamas. But that isn't me. I wanted to do something more meaningful. And, well, maybe just a little potty. My first move, I quietly bought the building we both lived in. Yep, I became Agnes Plummer's landlord. The irony was so thick, you could butter toast with IT. I didn't raise her and I am not a villain, but I did make some updates. I swapped out the doll by hallway carpet for one adorned with vibrant trumpets and jazzy nodes. I installed top-tier Wi-Fi, capable of streaming Netflix in 8 Kelvinov, free for all channels. And I hired a charming, young black man as the new superintendent just to see Agnes их presión. But the real piece de resistance. Her apartment. After she was evicted for multiple lease violations, including keeping a miniature horse in the bedroom, done task, I transformed her former unit into something special, a community center. Not just any center. The Agnes Plumley Center for Understanding and Wi-Fi. A play devoted to promoting racial harmony and offering free tech support for seniors. The grand opening was a hit. The mayor came. The local news covered IT. Even Princess of Alofi made an appearance this time invited. As I stood there, watching people of all ages learning how to reset routers and connect with each other, I soon held back green. Years passed. Life settled. The center thrived, becoming a true hub for the community. I kept working as a software engineer, moonlighting as a jazz musician on weekends. And to my own surprise, I started to forgive Agnes. One day, as I left the center, I spotted her sitting alone on a bench across the street from quiet and visibly agate. I hesitated, then walked over. Agnes, I said so swiftly. She looked up. Her eyes flickered with a mix of shame and weariness. Franklin, she whispered, how are you doing? I asked. She shrugged. Not great. Princess of Alofi passed last year, and I don't really have anyone else to. I sat beside her. Agnes, what you did was wrong. But I believe people can't change. She blinked at me, stunned. You forgive me. I smiled. Almost. But here is one condition. She tilted her head. At that, you've got to come to the center. Learn how to use a computer. And you have to volunteer help other seniors with tech. She stared at me for a long time. Then, slowly, a smile stretched across her face. Okay, Franklin. You do it, Tita. And she did. At first, reluctantly. But eventually, she showed up with real enthusiasm. She learned how to browse the internet, send emails, even stream Netflix without bothering. She became one of our most dedicated tech tutors, patient, kind, and shockingly good with troubleshooting. One afternoon, I walked into the center and found her leading a small workshop, helping a group of elderly women recover lost passwords. They lived, bonded, and learned together. That day, I realized something, and my living had led to something greater than justice. IT had sparked redemption. Agnes Plumley, once a bitter, hateful woman, had become a pillar of the community. And I, Franklin Jefferson, He'd help her get there. But it is a real twist. One day, while getting better with her tech skills, Agnes accidentally accessed an out-of-share account left to her by her late or her husband. Millions. Just sitting there. And what did she do? She handed it all over to me. Use it for good, she said. Make something better than what I was doing. And that, kids, is how I became a super millionaire. And how I kept going, not just making money, but making change. Because sometimes the best kind of justice is the kind that brings people back to themselves.